Today we've been joined by a very special individual, someone who possesses a large amount of knowledge when it comes to cricket, and of course he has covered more than 100 test matches, has an experience over 20 years when it comes to cricketing matters, and he has covered a lot of World Cups, a lot of important matches for Sri Lanka. And today we are here to talk about something important, how we can get Sri Lanka cricket back to their glory days. And to talk about it, I have Rex Clementine on our show today. Thank you very much, Rex, for accepting my invitation to feature on the show.
My pleasure.
So, talking about Rex, let's go into the cricketing matters later on. I've been following you for a long time. Not only me, a lot of people in Sri Lanka admire you for the work that you've been doing for cricket in Sri Lanka. How did you actually land up with a job that is related to cricket?
Well, so I try to play the game and never good at it. So the next best thing that you can do is to get into journalism. So 1999, straight after school, I was looking for an avenue, and one of my friends was working at Maharaja's, Leonard Ratnayaka. He's now in UK. So he's the one who introduced me, and I joined Maharaja's in 1999. Mr. Rondiota was my news director, and I learned the ropes here. And then from there on, I moved on to the newspaper industry, and now I've been with the Island newspaper for nearly 20 years now. Yeah, it's been interesting. Covering cricket has given me an opportunity to sort of travel around the world and meet some of the finest players to have graced the game. Love the opportunities and the challenges it provides. Got to know a lot of people. Got an opportunity to break a lot of stories, and see some historical moments of our cricket. So yeah, can't complain.
Talking about covering matches, you have covered more than 100 test matches. Can you talk a little bit about the first test match that you have covered, and home and abroad?
Yeah, first test match was I was just trying to recall what it was. It was at SSC Arjuna's last test match, and the first test match chose was the game where Murali went past Courtney Walsh, 517 wickets in Harare in Zimbabwe, 2004. And along the line, there have been some fantastic moments, like Sri Lanka winning a test match in Durban in 2011. Then, of course, winning a test match and the series in Headingley in 2014. Recently, in 2019, becoming the first Asian nation to win a test series in South Africa. Those are pretty memorable moments. I also covered the 4 World Cup finals that Sri Lanka lost: 2007 in Barbados, 2009 in Lords, in the World T20 final to Pakistan, then 2011 in Bombay to India, the 50-over final, finally the 2012 final to West Indies at Premdas Stadium, and the one that we won in 2014, I missed out on going. So some of the players say that I'm the person who's bringing them not so much luck.
Let's shift our attention to Sri Lanka cricket at this point of time, Rex. Now, when we talk about success, even there are certain graphs that are being circulated in social media about the surface. The success shows, but beneath the surface, a lot of people, you put hard work, a lot of effort goes in, dedication. It looks like, from a cricketing standpoint in Sri Lanka, people are pointing there. A lot of fingers have been pointed towards the players for not being, playing up to the standards. However, there's a kind of underneath the issue as well, which is related to administration. Based on your perspective, Rex, you've been covering, you've been in touch with a lot of people around the world who are involved in cricket. What is the exact issue? Do you think that, Sri Lanka have not evolved in terms of cricket, compared to the other countries who are basically making changes?
See, if you take the recent happenings, having a cigarette or, breaking team curfew, and having a late night out from the team hotel, these things are not new. Even the legends of Sri Lankan cricket, they've all done it. But the problem on this occasion was that the players broke the biosecure bubble. That was the mistake that they did. It's happened in the past as well, but right now there's a lot of focus on the players because of one fact, because the team is not doing so well. Those days, although players would engage in this stuff, people would not sort of pinpoint and criticize them too much because the performance were all right. But right now the performance is not so good, and certain activities of players have come under the spotlight as well. My thinking is, this is not the first time, some of these things have happened, like, the 3 players who were sent home from UK. I think on the first instance or the second instance when these things happened, they should have been penalized and they should have been put on the right track. For example, Kusal Mendy's motor accident that he caused last year. I mean, Sri Lanka Cricket didn't even give him a fine. I remember Ashley De Silva, the CEO, saying that's a personal matter, and they closed the book. So a proper message was not sent to the player, and we find that less than 1 year after the accident, he being appointed as the vice captain of the team. I mean, what's the kind of message that you are sending? And also, Kusal has been sort of dropped from the side, is struggling to find his place. So I think you're not sending the right message. If the administration had been firm when the incident happened, I think players would have learned their lessons. Same with Dimuth Karunaratne. I mean, how many times this has happened? Every time he's penalized, it's always a reduced sentence, or half the games that he's punished for is taken off because he's too good a player and all that stuff. But then you can't move about like that. If you want sort of discipline instilled, you got to be firm, and no matter how good the player is, you got to sort of take them on. Hopefully, now that there's been a lot of focus on in the incident of the last week, hopefully this time Sri Lanka Cricket will come down hard on them.
Talking about the disciplinary action that they have not taken, basically based on the prior activities, the prime example that we could take out of is how the English Cricket Board is treating their players, isn't it?
Oh yeah, not only English Cricket Board. I mean, even the Australian Cricket Board. They say Shane Warne was the best captain that Australia never had. He was like so good, but he got involved in so many of the field activities, and it brought disrepute for the establishment. And Cricket Australia made sure that he never became the captain of the Australian cricket team. So like that, you got to sort of take a leaf out of other cricket boards and sort of put your foot down and make sure that players don't overstep the line. And also you got to keep in mind that when you appoint these players into positions like vice captain and all that, there are younger players who are looking at that. So they tend to get the fee. They tend to assume that okay, fine, you can probably get off the grid, and people not take it seriously. You can always come back given your connections. That kind of message should not go, and hopefully I really hope that now they've completed 1 week of quarantine since returning from England. So by the 12th of July they'll be out, and the inquiry will start then, and when it starts, I hope really they'll put down their foot and send a very clear message.
Why do you think these things have not happened in the past? They have not taken the right disciplinary action against these players?
It's like affiliations and things like that. If you are playing for my club, I'll be sort of extra cautious in penalizing you. And also, as I said, Dimuth Karunaratne, one of the incidents, he was given a 6-month. He was given a 6-match suspension, but that was reduced to 3 matches because Sri Lanka didn't have enough players to go to Pakistan in 2017. And in 2018, when a similar incident happened, the board made sure, actually more than the board, the blame on that occasion should be pointed at the head coach, Chandika Thurusinghe. He made sure that a punishment was given so that he would miss the home series, and he'll be available for series away from home in New Zealand and South Africa, because everyone knows that Danushka is such a good player on bounce wickets when a lot of Sri Lankans struggle when there is a little bit of extra bounce. So obviously the coach wanted someone like him on those bouncy tracks, and was given a reduced sentence, and eventually it has all come back to haunt us. I think everyone from coaches to administrators, they've got all skeletons in their cupboard.
We spoke about the disciplinary part of Sri Lanka cricket at this point of time. Rex, let's shift our attention to the coaching topic. Now, I think all these issues about changing the coaches started back in 2011 after Trevor Bayliss left. You got Jeff Marsh in that Australian series. I guess that was the series that they sacked him.
That was like totally unbelievable. Sri Lanka go to South Africa, where we've done so badly all the time. We go to South Africa. This man does some amazing work with the team, and after losing the first test, they come on to win the second test. Won the series, they really give South Africa a good run for their money. Lose the series marginally, 3-2. He's sacked after the tour. And I think the board learned a pretty harsh lesson as well, because Marsh didn't keep quiet. He went and took legal action and won the case. The board had to pay a hefty fine for terminating his contract for doing it without following proper protocol. So they've learned their lessons, and let's hope such mistakes will not be committed in the future.
I was pretty much, I think it was around the Australian tour to Sri Lanka. That was the time that I guess he was sacked from his position.
Yeah, so he assumed duties. His first series was in UAE in 2011 when Sri Lanka went. He came to see his son making his debut, Sean Marsh making his debut at Pallekele. And when he came, the president at that time, Upali Dharamdasa, had a chat with him, and he was pretty impressed with his coaching credentials. Wanted him to join Sri Lanka Cricket. Joined, went to UAE for the series against Pakistan, came back home, went to South Africa, won the test match. The same president, 6 months later, sacked the head coach.
Even in that particular South African series, in the ODI series, I believe that Sri Lanka won, lost the series 3-2, I guess.
So I covered that series. It was one of the best series that Sri Lanka have been involved in South Africa, because every time we go to South Africa, the pace and bounce is too much, and we don't sort of do too well. But that was one occasion where we really fought hard and lost marginally, 3-2, and it was just so bizarre that he had to sort of be sacked after such a successful tour.
Talking about that particular series, you had Dinesh Chandima, Lahiru Thirimana, Thisara Pereira, Kumar Sangakkara scored a century, and there was 1-6 that Sachitra Sena Nayaka hit in the 4th or the 5th match.
It was one of the things that I remember now is, Sri Lanka lost the first test match inside 3 days by an innings in Centurion. The coach told the boys that, don't think, next 2 days going to be day off, you are going to come, we are going to train like, a test match will start at 10 o'clock. Like that, it will go on till 6 o'clock. So, he put on some good methods to counter the bounds in South African tracks. And Dinesh Chandimal made that debut in Durban Test match. There was a fast bowler called Machandi Langa. He got 7 wickets in an innings and batted so beautifully, Chandi. Actually, Kumar got out cheaply in the first test in Centurion. And the second test, he got a duck in the first innings, and second innings he got 100. In the first innings, Thilan Samaraweera got 100. Chandimal got half centuries in both innings. And I remember Jack Callis got a pair, first time in his career. And I remember South African media is like going, Callis is losing his eyesight and it's time for him to go and stuff. Next test match in Cape Town, in his hometown, he goes on to make a double 100.
Talking about, I just want to get a kind of an understanding about how they sacked Jeff Marsh, and you had, if you've been having close relationship with, a lot of the Sri Lankan cricketers. You had Kumar Sangakkara and Mahela Jayawardene, T.M. Dilshan, those giants of Sri Lanka cricket taking part in representing the country. What is their thought process in terms of Jeff Marsh being sacked from the coaching position?
I think, I'm not too sure about Dilshan, but I think both Kumar and Mahela have come out openly and said, that's the wrong decision and stuff. Certainly it was a bizarre decision. I think there's also so much of things that are happening, behind the scenes that people do not know. Politicians getting involved, their choices, various people putting pressure on the administrations and stuff. And I don't think, the board actually wanted to sack him, but I think they were pressurized by certain people to sort of, take that decision. And the board didn't have the backbone to say that, we can't be sacking the coach who's won our first ever test match in South Africa. So, as I said, they paid a hefty fine for that wrong decision.
Now, talking about the coaches continuously, you had Paul Fabris, coming into Sri Lanka scene, and then he was the coach of that 2014 winning World Cup team.
Yeah.
And then thereafter, he left to England. Yeah. And then thereafter, we brought in Graham Ford. I guess Sana Jayasuriya brought Graham Ford, and then Nick Pothos was there. And then things were not happening the way that Sri Lanka were expecting from the coaches' end. And then finally, a glimpse of hope when they brought in Chandika Hathurusinghe in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And that was the time that people believed, I believe, I'm not sure what's your perspective, at least if somebody is going to make a change to the Sri Lanka cricket, based on how his track record was with Bangladesh, Chandika Hathurusinghe might be able to do the job. What happened to Chandika?
Yeah, I'll start with Paul Fabris. It's an interesting one. Paul Fabris came in as the coach, and Sri Lanka won the Asia Cup in Dhaka, Sri Lanka won the T20 World Cup in Dhaka, and while they were winning everything, nobody had any idea that Paul Fabris was secretly having talks with the ECB to take over as the assistant coach to Trevor Bayliss with the England men's team. So, you know, I mean, straight after that tour to Bangladesh, where Sri Lanka won the World T20 and the Asia Cup, Sri Lanka was supposed to go to England, and Paul had actually, you know, I mean, done all the planning and stuff, and so he knew basically, you know, I mean, what they were having up their sleeves. Interestingly, Paul left at the last minute, and batting coach Marwan Atapattu was made the head coach, and he did so well in that series. Sri Lanka went on to
win the ODI Test series.
Yeah, remarkable tour. They won the Test, won the ODI series, followed by Test series win. You know, it's like unbelievable Test match in Headingley, where they won in the penultimate ball of the game, and yeah. So Paul Fabris was sort of, you know, I mean, taught a very good lesson, I thought. Then, you know, I mean, again, after Marwan lost back-to-back series to India and Pakistan at home, they brought in Paul Fabris, and I thought Paul Fabris is, you know, Graham Ford. Graham Ford is someone who's very good at working with young players. I mean, if you take his coaching stint with South Africa after Bob Woolmer, when he took over in 1999, he had a lot of young players like, you know, I mean, Jack Cullis, so many young players. He worked with them, and, you know, I mean, he made sure, you know, I mean, they were at a very competitive level, and they were like ready for the challenges of internationals. Like that, you know, I mean, he could have done so many things here as well. But then, you know, unnecessary interference from the board, and, you know, I mean, they brought in various people into various positions, and eventually Fordy had to go in 2016 after the Champions Trophy. Then Nick Potas was there for about 6 months as an interim coach. Of course, Chandika took over, and there was a lot of hope when Chandika took over. And let
me just go back to Graham Ford's stint as the coach. In 2017, the Champions Trophy, and I'm sure that Sri Lanka were almost qualified had that catch was taken by Tisera.
Oh yeah,
and things would have been much different.
I know, you know, yeah, catches win matches. You know, I mean, it's a famous saying. You know, Sri Lanka would have gone on to play the semi-finals of that tournament had that catch been taken, but then that's cricket, you know. So as I said, you know, Fordy is someone, you know, who's sort of very good at developing young players, and, you know, I mean, if you take Dhananjay De Silvas, Roshan Silvas, all these guys, you know, I mean, came along when Fordy was in charge. And don't forget that, you know, I mean, under Fordy, Sri Lanka beat Australia in a Test series 3-0. It was very good planning by him, and he did some good stuff. It was very unfortunate that Sri Lanka missed out on him. Coming to Athuru Singh, what I thought was, you know, I mean, he is probably the most knowledgeable coach that I have seen. There's no doubt about it. But I have doubts about his man management skills. You know, I mean, he could probably improve on that area. But having said that, he was given all the freedom that he needed to sort of put this right. I mean, they even changed the constitution and gave him selection powers and all that stuff. But then, you know, in 2018, when we were in New Zealand, something unexpected happened. The 52-day government happened. The sports minister was sort of like, he had to do a lot of changes, like, you know, changing the captains in middle of a tour and all that. And Hathu started losing his clout from there on. I mean, a lot of people, I saw Harin Fernando, you know, I mean, sorry, taking credit the other day for getting rid of overpaid coaches. You know, I mean, he may take credit, but that actually might cost Sri Lanka Cricket something like $5 million, because, you know, I mean, he's sued the cricket board, and he had a pretty strong contract. If Sri Lanka Cricket loses the case, you know, that's going to be a massive come down for the board, because $5 million is, you know, something that they could utilize for the development of the game for several years, I would say.
We're talking about $5 million as compensation to Chandika Athuru Singh, and this is a hefty amount, isn't it?
It is, it is. I mean, I'm just assuming that, you know, I mean, $5 million is the amount that he sued the board for, but I'm sure that, you know, I mean, they'll be, if they lose the case, they'll be paying much more, because, you know, they have, in various other things, you know, they'll have to sort of, you know, I mean, make sure that his legal costs are met and all that. So it'll be definitely.
Talking about Athuru Singh at that point of time, Rex, you know, You said that he had all these powers, all the powers were given to Hathurusingha, but things went wrong during that time. And they brought in Angelo Matthews as the captain as soon as Chandika Hathurusingha was. I think still certain people believe that Angelo Matthews was the right captaincy material for Sri Lanka.
I mean, we have groomed Angelo for the captaincy for years. I mean, we always do that. If you take all our captains, if you take Arjuna, he was groomed from a very young age to be captain. If you take Mahala, he was groomed from a very young age to be captain. Same with Angelo. He has captain Sri Lanka under 19. He has captain Sri Lanka A. It was a nice progression, and he was handed over the national team. He quit the job in 2017 when Sri Lanka lost to Zimbabwe at home. And after that, when Hathu came back, he was basically pleading with Angelo to take over the leadership. Angelo was reluctant, but since Hathu was asking, he took over. And eventually, after Sri Lanka got knocked off in the Asia Cup, Angelo was sort of sidelined again, which I thought was very unfair on him, But to his credit, he's come back, and there have been other offers in recent past for him to take over the captaincy, but he sort of learned his lessons and is not given in for the requests, even though in 2019 I recently heard that President Maithripala Sirisena himself approached and asked him to request him to take over the captaincy, but Angelo was pretty adamant, and he turned it down at that time. I mean, that's the point with the captains, I mean, you got to groom your captains. I certainly, Kusal Janit Perra is one of the nicest guys that you can come across in cricket, but captaincy material, I am not too sure, and that's where I mean, the selectors have faltered, and you could see during the series, he runs out of ideas, and it's not the most sort of inspirational guy who could I mean, do some, I mean, the bowling changes and all that were betraying. So that's what I always believe, that I mean, if you have groomed your captains, always stick to them, don't worry about the age. Look at what South Africa did when they knocked out of the World Cup in 2003. They had so many options to go back to. They had Gary Kirsten, they had Jack Callis, they had Mark Boucher. But whom did Homa Henry go to? He went to a unproven 22-year-old in Graham Smith.
And he did not do much at that part of time even, isn't it?
Absolutely. He was not sure of the place in the side. But then there was something that Omar Henry saw, and then Arun Logat, who succeeded Omar Henry, made sure that I mean, Smith was given all the freedom, and he went on to become one of South African cricket's most successful captains after Dr. Ali Bakar. So I mean, you got to don't worry about your age and stuff. I mean, if you feel that I mean, someone has got the right leadership qualities, you got to I mean, back your instincts and back that person whom you think is the right leader.
I think after Hathurusingha left, and there was a void, and then we brought in Muttiah.
Yes.
And it was Romesh Ratnayaka who was the interim coach of Sri Lanka Cricket, and I believe he was the coach when Sri Lanka won the T20 series against Pakistan in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Talking about Muttiah's appointment as the coach of Sri Lanka, he has a vast experience when it comes to cricket. He had coached South Africa, a successful South African team. Australia did not work out well. Pakistan, up to a certain extent, he did.
He won the Champions Trophy with them, so
And also they were the #1 side in T20 when we beat them 3-0.
Yeah, Mickey is like more of a hands-on coach. I really like Mickey's coaching style. I mean, there's a lot of hue and cry about him trying to demand minimum fitness standards on this 2-kilometer run, but these are I mean, minimum stuff. I mean, whether it's Mickey or anyone else, players should be able to sort of keep up pace with that. I know that I mean, Sri Lanka haven't performed under Mickey, but you can't put all the blame on at his doorstep, because I mean, we've got so many other issues like our domestic cricket and the players' issues and various other things that have gone against the team at the moment, and you can't simply, for losing a few series, you can't point out all the blame at Mickey.
There's a thought that goes on. We spoke about the disciplinary actions, and we spoke about the coaching of Sri Lanka Cricket. There's another thing is about captains of Sri Lanka Cricket. Now we clearly spoke about Kusal Perera is not the right person, and obviously people saw him how he captained Candy Tuskers during the concluded Lanka Premier League. Talking about the captaincies in Sri Lanka now, there was a bizarre decision that they made, not getting Dasun Shanaka back to the T20 after he won a series.
Yeah, I know. See, it's like, I mean, right now I feel that Kusal Janith Perera has got too much on his plate. He's keeping wickets, he's opening batting, he's captaining the side, you know, he'll be killed, you know, I mean, if he continues like that, because it's too much on him, and you know, he's not the most fittest guy. He's got a lot of hamstring issues, and he's been out of cricket for quite some time. I thought the moment that, you know, Dasun won the T20, the T20 series against Pakistan, he should have been the automatic choice for, but for some reason, obviously, Lasith Malinga was there, so, you know, nobody wanted to sort of, you know, I mean, touch him, you know how powerful he is. So they all kept quiet. But then, you know, I mean, once Lasith is done and dusted, you know, I mean, obviously, when you're bringing in Kusal, you could have easily, you know, I mean, given the T20 captaincy to sort of Dasun Shanaka, because he's a proven leader, and he's won you games, he's won you series. And you can see the way Dasun sort of runs the team. You know, he's got it in him. When you see a player, you know, I mean, you can say that whether it's captain. I was actually shocked that, you know, I mean, they offered both captaincies to Kusal Perera, because, you know, it shows that people who are calling shots are not too aware of the players that we've got. I mean, otherwise, why would they go and play Osho de Fernando in T20 cricket? That too during the power plays. These are, you know, I mean, some strange, I mean, you got to know, the other problem that I have got with those who are running the sport is that, you see, they seem to have sort of, you know, I mean, over the years not watched a lot of cricket. Their sort of, you know, I mean, experience seems to be limited to a certain time frame. You know, there are some of these players who have been tried and tested in certain formats in the past, and we know what they are capable of. So we don't have to go back to them again unless they've done so well in domestic cricket and all that. But we see, you know, people doing the same mistake again and again. I mean, Pathum Nisanga got a beautiful 100 on debut in Test match cricket, but that doesn't make him a good white ball cricketer. Praveen Jayavikrama got 11 wickets on debut, but that doesn't make him a white ball cricketer. Simply because someone's succeeding in red ball cricket, don't expect him to sort of do well in white ball cricket as well. And these are things, you know, I mean, it's common things, you know. And that's why I always say that, you know, I mean, during a moment of crisis like this, you need a shrewd person as the head of your selectors. Someone like Siddharth Vettamuni, someone who's calm and matured and like who's sort of weighing things and take decisions and not go by emotions and take, or even someone like Ashanta Dimel. I think it's one of the best selectors that I've seen in the last 20 years, or even for that matter someone like Sanath Jayasuriya. He was the chairman of selectors when Sri Lanka won the World T20. He was the chairman of selectors when Sri Lanka won the Test series in England. So he's proved himself as well, and he's very much a hands-on kind of guy. I mean, you got to go with some people who sort of, you know, I mean, got proven track records rather than, you know, trying new things and trying untested things, especially at a time of crisis like this.
Now, I had a question about Dimuth Karunaratne's captaincy also, Rex. Now, he was the captain. I believe he was the most successful captain after all the captains that we had. You know, he brought back some sort of, you know, respect to Sri Lanka cricket during that particular
Dimuth was
World
an
Cup.
interesting one. I mean, he was made captain like overnight. You know, we were in Canberra, we had lost a test match, and Dimuth was in the hospital. He had got hit by Stark and was receiving treatment. Soon after the test series was lost, the board made a call that they were going to change the captain, and they didn't even have the courtesy to tell Dimuth's predecessor, Dinesh Chandima, that he's been sacked. Dimuth, all respect for him, he went and had a chat with Chandi and said, you know, I mean, look, I've been told something like this, what do you think? That's how Chandi got to know that, you know, I mean, he's been sacked. It's not the proper way to do things, but anyway, I mean, coming back to Dimuth, he went to South Africa and he won that series against South Africa, Sri Lanka became the first Asian nation to win a test series in South Africa. Mind you, apart from England and Australia, no other team has won a test series in South Africa. So that says what a huge achievement that was. And then after that, by the time the 2019 World Cup came, the selectors realized that, you know, I mean, there's no single person who could sort of, you know, I mean, bring the team together. And then they had some issues with the team was struggling to bat out the 50 overs. So they thought that, you know, I mean, Dimuth is fitting all these credentials and he was brought in. And he did a damn good job. And you see now that, you know, I mean, he's been sacked from the T20, I mean, ODI side, and, you know, I mean, he's sacked as the captain and he's not part of the ODI side as well. And what happens in UK? Sri Lanka again not able to bat out the 50 overs. So, all problems are resurfacing. I mean, by the looks of it, he's not going to be part of the Indian ODIs as well, because he's not entered the biosecure bubble. But moving forward, if the problem of not being able to bat out the 50 overs keeps resurfacing, I think we need to sort of go back to Dimuth and make sure that he gives that stability top of the order.
During a press conference prior to the limited over series against England, Kusal Perera came back and said, look, the problem lies within the batting lineup, bowling has improved. Then I immediately went back and then checked the score sheets of the West Indies series. During the limited over one-day matches, you see Sri Lanka scoring 280 runs in both the second and the third ODIs. And then bowling was not up to par in that particular match. Because of that reason, I believe West Indies chased down the targets. You had Dushmantha Shamira, Lakshan Sandakan was part of it, and I believe another player was part of it. So I saw some type of a consistency in terms of the bowling lineup when they moved to Bangladesh. But the same batting lineup was changed in the Bangladesh series, and then we went and failed. And prior to the Bangladesh limited over series, we had confidence because we beat them in a test series also.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the bowling success, I think a lot of that is due to Chaminda Vasa's presence. He's obviously, played over 10 years of county cricket, representing 4 different counties. I think he started with Worcester, then went to Middlesex, then he finished at Northampton for sure. In between he had one more county. I went to Hampshire as well. So Worcester, Hampshire, Middlesex and Northampton. So he's got, loads of experience of how to bowl in England. I'm sure, they'll come in handy for guys like Chamira and the other seamers. And also, the mistake that, we did was just before the West, we didn't take a bowling coach. Was because, there was standoff and stuff and he didn't go. There is a sense of feeling in our cricket that foreign coaches are pretty much capable and they are able to sort of achieve things, and not our coach. I don't think so. Vasi has proved it on this instance. So people like him need to be sort of given all the backing and support. Another very good prospect that we should have had, Rangana Herath. Sad to see him leaving to Bangladesh. So the presence of these guys are certainly helping us to do well in that particular aspect. I think once Lahiru Kumara comes back into the side, the bowling will be even strong, because we'll be having 2 guys, Dushmantha Chamira and Lahiru Kumara, bowling from either side at 140 plus kilometers per hour. So that's pretty good pace. Then you got someone like Nuwan Pradeep Fernando to give the control. You got the leg spin of Wanindu Asaranga. There's Lakshan Sandakan. I'm not too sure Praveen Jayavikrama is going to be part of the white ball cricket. I'm not too sure whether Akila Dalanja without the one that goes away without that ball. I'm not too sure whether he's going to be that effective in limit dose cricket. Ramesh Mendis has looked very impressive. So he's probably the guy that we need to sort of back and give all the opportunities so that we can have a proper bowling unit. I know this has been pretty tough times for Sri Lanka, but don't forget that England are ranked #1 in the world, and these experiences are actually going to be pretty good by the time Sri Lanka is going to play the qualifiers, because they would have played some very competitive teams, and against weaker nations they will be up for the challenge. First of all, that should not have happened. We shouldn't have fallen down to the level of playing qualifying cricket. But that's what it is, and we got to deal with it and move forward.
Based on your perspective, Rex, what do you think as the ideal playing 11? Get rid of all the contract issues and everything. If everything is in line, who are the 11 players should play in ODI and T20 cricket, based on your understanding?
It's a tough one. You basically have a group of players, about 20 players, for both formats of the game, and move forward. I don't criticize the selectors for sort of saying, okay, fine, we need some young talent, and we need to move on, because the issue is with seniors the team was struggling, so their thinking there probably was right. Maybe they could have had 1 or 2 players in the white ball format, maybe Angelo Matthews, maybe Dimuth Karunaratne, and move forward. But they've also said that they've not shut the door on the seniors. They've kept it open. So let's not be too harsh on the selectors. I think the ideal situation would be to sort of to have about 20 players and move on. I'm really surprised covered a series in UAE in 2017. There was this young player called Sadira Samaravikrama who made his debut, and highly impressed by his work ethic, the way he conducted himself and his skill levels. But for some reason since then, you know, I mean, he's not got a break. Fortunately, he's right now in the bubble in Dambulla. He is one exciting talent that you could probably keep an eye, because he's one guy who's got it in him to play shorter formats of the game much better than what the current team is doing. I mean, he's showed it in a couple of occasions, but not on a consistent. But I think with his work ethic and with his focus and stuff, he's probably one guy that you need to back.
About the analysis that is taking place in the cricketing world now, it has taken a huge leap forward at this point of time. The cricket boards, and especially those English cricket boards, Australian cricket boards, have just basically analysed the player performances to the next level, even the oppositions. I'm just looking at the dismissals of Wanindu Hasaranga getting out for the short ball, Avishka Fernando getting out, you know, walking across the crease, getting LBW. Now, when you do research, when you find it on internet, look, you know, the research has gone to a level where you can identify, if you are facing a bowler, what type of lengths he would bowl, if he bowls from around the wicket or over the wicket, how we would bowl, and all of those things. Now, does Sri Lanka, based on your understanding and based on your awareness, does Sri Lanka have that type of an analysis prior to the match?
We do have an analyst. Niroshan was on tour. I saw he was in the dressing room. So we do have an analysis, and we also have a brain center and things like that. But, you know, I mean, talking about batting deficiencies, Wanindu Hasaranga, you know, you can understand. You see, the problem is, you know, I mean, he's a bowler who's batted at number 8 and given you some decent runs. So on his success at number 8, you can't expect, you know, I mean, him to sort of, you know, I mean, move up the order and, you know, be so consistent and produce runs. Is that a bit of a struggle? But I'm pretty sure, you know, I mean, given the little that I've seen of him, he's a very smart kid, and he'll come around. Also, don't forget the fact that the easiest year in international cricket for you is your first year, because people don't know you much, and you can sort of, you know, I mean, try out things and go undetected. But once you sort of spend 9 months to 12 months, people sort of, you know, I mean, work you out, and your struggle starts, and then, you know, I mean, you should be able to sort of reinvent yourself and fight back. And Avishka, a bit unfortunate. I thought he was sort of had a bit of an injury, and, you know, he struggled a little bit in UK, but it's an amazing talent once again. What I can't sort of understand is how he failed multiple fitness tests over a 2-week period. I mean, he would have gone on to probably make his test debut in Gaul in January had he not failed that fitness test. I think that's the thinking that had. But I mean, a 22-year-old failing a skin fold test or a 2-kilometer run is absolutely bizarre. But I guess, you know, I mean, it was dropped, and the right message was sent, and hopefully, you know, I mean, he would have learned his lessons. I mean, sorry to say this, but don't think, you know, I mean, Grant Flowers sort of impressed too much as the batting coach. Batting has been a struggle since January. I mean, actually, you know, I mean, since the time Sri Lanka went to South Africa last year. There are things that, you know, I mean, the batting coach has not been sort of able to sort out. And maybe it's time that they take another look at this particular aspect, and for the India series that they do something.
All these things are taking place, Rex, but there's a technical advisory committee appointed by the sports minister, headed by Aravinda De Silva, and the committee consists of Kumar Sangakkara, Roshan Mahanama, and Muttiah Muralitharan. Then people are talking about, look, you know, you need to get your legends back onto the cricketing fold to see if Sri Lanka could get to the next level. They are already there. Why things are not happening?
Oh, you got to give them time. I mean, obviously, you know, they've done something pretty impressive, like, you know, I mean, grading the players. There's a lot of opposition for that, you know, I mean, that's, I think, because we didn't play much cricket last year, but once sort of, you know, I mean, this year's cricket has happened, there won't be much issues with the grading when it comes to contracts and stuff. They've taken some steps in the right direction, but I assume that they've also had a lot of opposition. They're trying to introduce a provincial tournament, but I don't think, you know, I mean, a lot of people who are making the final decisions are happy with the provincial tournament, because as I said, I mean, before that, people keep saying, okay, the club structure helped us win a World Cup. Why do you need to sort of, I mean, change the structure? We got to move on with times. Australia has got 5 teams playing first class cricket. We've got 25 teams playing first class cricket. No way that's, I mean, going to be good enough. We got to do something with the first class structure. I mean, if people don't want to touch the club system, that's fine. But then on top of that, definitely, I mean, there should be an inter-provincial tournament, and where the competitiveness is high and the best players play. I think that's what they're looking at. That's probably the recommendation that Tom Moody's made as well, the director of cricket. Hopefully, I mean, that will be sort of implemented sooner than later. But what I hear is, I mean, rather than this year, it will be, only coming into effect next year. Whenever it comes into effect, it certainly is going to help address a lot of issues. But the problem with provincial cricket is, I mean, it's usually, I mean, it's introduced and people engage that in for 2 years or maximum 3 years, and after that, I mean, it's just thrown out of the window because it's not pleasing the decision makers in cricket. Obviously, clubs vote people into cricket, and eventually those who are in administration, they need to sort of look after the interests of the clubs and nothing else. So I think that has to end, and if that doesn't end, our struggles are going to be on for some time.
The main problem that kind of lies at this point of time is that the people who are governing Sri Lanka cricket, or the people who govern Sri Lanka cricket, have not made the right decision. And even you said that the provincial tournament structure is not in favor of the people who are making decisions. There was a time in 2015 that under Siddharth Vettamuni, who was chairing the interim committee, they almost went ahead to change the constitution of Sri Lanka cricket.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell you what happened. I think they asked advice from the ICC. ICC told go back to the system of Ireland and system of South Africa, and the constitution of Ireland and constitution of South Africa, the cricket boards, and formulate something on those lines. So President's Council, Prasanna Jayawardena, was put in charge of forming that constitution. I think he went on to he was a President Council then, and then he went to become a judge. Sadly, he passed away some time back. So he was, I mean, preparing this drafted constitution. But what happened was, I mean, at that point, 2015, the sports ministry was under UNP, during the Yapalne government. Now, certain vested parties with vested interests, they realized that, I mean, if this constitution change is going to happen, that's going to affect them. They put pressure on President Maithripala Sirisena, and during the cabinet reshuffle, they made sure that the sports ministry was taken away from the UNP and it was given back to an SLFP minister. I mean, I'm not trying to say that the UNP was doing pretty well or good things for sports or whatever. They had skeletons in their cupboards during the Yapalne government. They did quite a bit of harm as well for the game. But that's why the new constitution change did not happen. As soon as the new sports minister came, Dayasri Jayasekara, he made sure that all those changes were sort of put into the bin, and elections were called, and we get the old people back.
If there's ever a time that Sri Lanka would have made a change in terms of, to whatever that's happening at this point of time, would have been that point of time, isn't it?
Yeah, opportunity missed.
Few more questions left, Rex. Now, when we talk about the coaches, now India had the likes of John Wright, and then in the 2007 World Cup, I believe it was Greg Chappell, and thereafter India kind of moved on to a kind of a locally focused coaches. Ravi Shastri was brought in, and even at this point of time, even if you see the Indian coaching staff and the support staff, except for 1 or 2 people, everyone are from India. Based on your perspective, what do you why do you think those kind of decisions being made by India?
I mean, Duncan Fletcher was India's coach as well. I went on a tour to India in 2009. If you see 2009, if you see the Board of Control of Cricket in India's office, you would be surprised. It was a tiny little, staircase to get there, and I mean, it was a small office. But given their commercial success in recent years, now they've completely revamped the thing, and completely different world right now. I think what India has done, they've done quite a few things right. Not only, I mean, you see, at this level they say that, you know, I mean, what you need is not a sort of a high profile coach. What you need is someone who's able to manage things. So that's what India has done. I mean, don't forget that before Ravi Shastri, India also had Anil Kumble, who was quite good at his job as well, and then Ravi took over, I think, when they came to Sri Lanka in 2017, and it's been quite a success since then. And Ravi is a kind of guy, you know, I mean, more than technical input, and he's someone, you know, I mean, get everyone together and perform. As you said that, you know, I mean, apart from the physiotherapy side, India's got sort of homegrown coaches into all aspects. I think what you got to look at India and learn is, apart from the IPL, they've got some very good development structures. They've, under Rahul Dravid at the National Cricket Academy in Bangalore, they've got a nice system going where, you know, I mean, the development squad is into high profile training. And also, you know, I mean, if you see the Indian A team constantly travels to places like South Africa, Australia, England to gain exposure. I mean, when India won in Australia last year, it was basically Indian B team. I mean, so many frontline guys were injured and unavailable, and, you know, the second string guys did. That's because, you know, I mean, they'd gone to Australia, they've played in those conditions, and, you know, I mean, they've gained experience and they are up for the challenge. Same thing with England, they go to England and play. I mean, even Australia's A team constantly tours, and England's, they call it England Lions, they frequently tour other countries as well. But whereas, I mean, I know this question has been asked before, and the board is putting the blame on the pandemic, that because of the pandemic that they've not been able to have a lot of A team cricket. But if you sort of, you know, I mean, analyze, go back to maybe say 3 years, 4 years, the A team cricket that Sri Lanka has played compared to what other countries like India, Australia and England have played, there's a huge gap. I mean, Avishka Gunawarddene was the A team coach, was complaining as well that there isn't much time for him to develop his players through exposures. We had a board president in 2012 who said that, you know, I mean, you can't have a lot of A team tours because it's not, you know, it's not a profitable thing, you know, commercially not, it's basically it's not a profitable thing, he said. I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, think on those lines, you know, you can't say that, you know, I mean, it's not making any money, and we can't, it's important to have A team cricket for the development's sake. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, that's how our administrators have looked at things, and because of that we are being taught a harsh lesson now. But the cricket committees, I think, I assume they've insisted that there should be development cricket and A team cricket taking place, and my understanding is those who are in the biosecurity bubble in Dambulla, who's not making to the senior side, they'll be sort of, you know, I mean, playing A team cricket, and which is a very good move. We need to sort of, you know, I mean, give our second string guys more exposure, not only at home, even in places like Australia, England, South Africa, because these are the three hard places to play cricket. To be very frank, I can't remember what was the last time that you know, Sri Lanka's A team went and toured Australia, to be very honest with you. I think, you know, I mean, maybe going back to more than 20 years.
We spoke about the captaincy. What are the other things do you think that Sri Lanka should do to kind of, you know, get out of this hole?
Well, you know, I mean, some respected gentlemen have come together, and they've sought the assistance of the court to sort of change the constitution of the cricket board. So the matter is in courts now, and hopefully there will be some relief, and that matter will be looked at. And also, you know, I mean, like to see that you know, I mean, the sport being kept away from politics. There's a lot of too much of political interference, I feel, happening, and that's one reason why the game has, you know, I mean, suffered these lows. I'm not saying only it has happened only right now, but if you go back to the last 25 years, ever since we won the World Cup, political interferences have been a huge issue for our cricket. There's been constant interferences, and because of that the game has suffered a lot of damages, and it's in the current mess mainly because of that. And you know, I mean, if people can sort of look at the national interest and work towards that rather than looking at short-term goals, we will certainly do much better than this in the world stage. Because talent-wise, always believe that, you know, I mean, we are never short of talent. I mean, never seen, you know, I mean, in any other country that there are bowlers who can both bowl right arm and left arm. Sri Lanka's got the talent, and like that, you know, I mean, we produce some amazing players with unique skills. If you take a Lasith Malinga, if you take a Muttiah Muralitharan, if you take a Sanath Jayasuriya, these are not sort of, you know, I mean, conventional players. You know, these are very unconventional kind of cricketers. So definitely the talent is there, and if these talents can be channeled properly, and if the game can be without politics, I think we can certainly make a lot more progress.
And I believe the responsibility lies with the administrators. I believe there's no doubt about it. There's no question or no pointing fingers towards the players. I believe that, you know, as long as the right support system is available for the Sri Lankan cricketers, I guess they should be able to get to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you know, so many, if you take from 2007 to sort of 2014, in 7 years, look at the amount of ICC finals that Sri Lanka has reached. I don't think, you know, I mean, in such a short span, no other team has reached that many finals, despite having all the, you know, I mean, turbulence and, you know, I mean, off the field issues. So we've done well, really, you know, I mean, compared to, and also, I mean, I know that a lot of fans are upset that, you know, I mean, the team is not doing well and all that stuff. But don't forget that, you know, I mean, that this is cricket. Success is a cycle. I mean, you know, in 70s, West Indies were ruling the world, and then, you know, they went down. Then Australia in 2000, you know, they were like nobody could beat them, and Steve was tied, was so good. But 2016 they came here and, you know, I mean, lost 3-0. England cricket was really horrible in 90s and 2000s and even 2010s. I mean, I remember 2011 World Cup, if you take, Sri Lanka beating England in the quarter final by 10 wickets. 2015, you know, Sri Lanka beat England by 9 wickets. They were so poor. But it's a cycle, and I think, you know, I mean, the good thing is, you know, I mean, bad times won't last long. Good times hopefully will come, and hopefully will come soon.
Indeed. We hope that the good times will come soon. Thank you very much,
okay.
Rex, for accepting my invitation, and it was indeed a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.